Hi, everybody. I'm Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. Today, awesome packed show. Jim Suhan and I welcome in one of his colleagues from the Star Tribune, Emily Leiker. We're going to talk the crazy first 2 weeks of the Viking season, and now they've even added a third quarterback in Desmond Ridder, and a welcome back for a third time to running back Cam Akers with Aaron Jones on IR. But before we get to all of that craziness and hear a great story from Emily and where she's from, get to know her a little bit, we're going to talk about winners. Let's talk about some winning basketball. We're welcoming in right now Lynx broadcaster Lea B. Olsen. And Lea, I'm telling you, last night, the Lynx coming back from a 17-point deficit. Talk about dramatic to win game 2. It has been an emotional roller coaster, but coming out on the winning end for the Lynx. How has that been for you? And welcome to the show.
Oh, Don, thanks so much for having me. It has been an absolute blast watching this Lynx team all season long. You know, just to take you back to the regular season, a team that won 34 games in the regular season, 20 of those games at home, so 20-2 at Target Center. So I think sometimes the fans have to kind of stop and realize, like, this is an elite, different team that we are in the midst of watching right now. And so when you get that number 1 seed, you get to play the number 8 seed, and that was the Golden State Valkyries. And boy, that second game was outstanding. The Lynx pulled it off by 1. It was playoff basketball, and that's what I think makes the WNBA playoffs so incredibly special, is just that you're seeing the best of the best at that next level. And I thought the Valkyries gave it every single thing they had, hitting 11 three-pointers and getting 30 paint points. But it wasn't quite enough against the Lynx.
Lea, I've always loved the WNBA, and we've seen great teams, great players through the years. I do think this playoff season seems special in some ways. I think the fact that Golden State had 18,000 screaming people in the place last night, including a bunch of celebrities. I think the fact that 3 of the 4 series are going to a decisive third game, and the other one came very close to going. The 8-1 seed game came very close to going to a decisive third game. It feels to, I want your opinion on it, but it feels to me like we're seeing there's just so much talent in the league. There's so much competitiveness in the league. There's so much relative parity other than the Lynx running away with this regular season title. There's so much relative parity in the league that, I don't know. It feels to me like the WNBA is actually getting better as we watch it.
Yeah, I do think it's one of those special kind of moments that you see in sports, like the tipping point for something great that's happening in the WNBA. And when I think about it, like if I think back to other moments like this, I go back actually to the Lindsay Whalen era at the University of Minnesota, the 03-04 years, because what you saw then was really talented players at the college game and people coming out in hordes to watch them. And it's just like you have these moments in sports where I think the talent rises to a certain level, and then you see kind of the different fans who haven't been supporting women's basketball are coming out to do so. And so like the Golden State story is just a great one. I mean, they were wanting a franchise for a while, and they've backed it up by filling that place up each and every night. And then they've done something remarkable by getting to the playoffs in their first season as an expansion team. So yeah, I completely agree. We're in the midst of kind of a special era of WNBA basketball.
You know, Lea, I like how you said at the beginning, I think people need to realize just how elite this Lynx team is when they have a record-setting regular season. I think, you know, casual Lynx fans, not the rabid ones that know everything that's going on, but casual Lynx fans would be like, well, yeah, they win. I mean, so what makes this team elite? And it's not just Nafisa. And when you see someone who's kind of struggled, and I say this point-wise because she's helped in other ways, when you see someone like Bridget Carlton being the one to spark the comeback, I think people forget just how stacked and how talented this version of the Lynx team is. It's not just Queen Fee. You can just go down the list and they all play off each other. So I love that. I know we hear, elite thrown around in Minnesota a lot, but this team truly is. What is your take on what makes them so amazing this year as opposed to years past? Not to compare championships or anything, but just like Jim was just talking about, the quality in the league. But this team just has had it from the jump.
Well, I will give this credit to Cheryl Reeve because what she has been able to do in bringing players together who want to play a certain type of basketball and who really understand the way that she coaches and her theory of you have to play team basketball. And so this team, of course, led the league in assists all season long. It's a team. One of the things that Coach Reeve demands from her players is that really it's kind of positionless, that you have to be able to shoot from outside, that you have to play physical basketball. There's just these certain things that they have to lead with their defense. And she finds the types of players that will fit into that. And this group in particular, I think is super unique because you're right on Fee. She's the superstar who I think will eventually be a Hall of Famer. The rest of this team is just really good players playing the game, what I would say is the right way. And so it's kind of a unique fit because like Bridget Carlton's a perfect example. She's easy to overlook because if you're trying to lock this team down, you're going to go after Kayla McBride, Nafisa Collier, and Courtney Williams. And then Bridget Carlton standing over there on the 3-point line, knocking shots down. She doesn't do it every time she's on the floor, but her numbers are consistent enough and her defense is fantastic. So it's just this, it's funny about the Lynx. They're not an intimidating team. Like, I don't think when they walk into anyone's arena that they're intimidating anybody, but they kind of just slice and dice teams apart with just their consistency and that, 1 through 8, they are so good across the board.
What I find really interesting about their circumstance, and listen, if you look at the metrics, they're number one defense team, number one offensive team. They have what I think is the most valuable player, what I think is the best player in the league, the best coach. They play the best style. They play the smartest. I mean, they have so many things going for them. What I find interesting about this team is they were so good that they were able to kind of rest people in the last couple of weeks. Now they're the only team with an extra rest going into the second round of the playoffs, the semifinals. My only concern about this team is they just haven't played many must-win games since the finals last year. Do you have any concerns on that front going forward?
I don't. I feel like this is a team that knows how to win games. If you look at that starting lineup, like who wouldn't you want to have the ball in her hands at the end of a game? All of them they just are calm, I think, in those moments. So I think they know how to win. I would think the biggest concern, the piece that's really critical, and knock on wood, is that they're healthy. And that's really been one of the biggest issues in the WNBA all season long. The Lynx have faced so many teams this season that have been decimated by injury. And so then we had that little space where Fee was out for a bit, but then the team was still able to kind of hold it up for the most part without her. But so I feel pretty good about kind of tough games. I think the one thing that is hard for the Lynx is when they match up with a team that's really athletic and really physical. And if they have, post players that are big and athletic and strong cause some issues for the Lynx. And so to me that, whoever we end up with in the next series, I think you'll see a little bit more of that than you did in this series against Golden State. But I think this is a team that knows how to win. I have a lot of confidence in particular in that starting 5. But really, if you even go like 7 deep with Heidemann and Jessica Shepard, I would trust any of them with the ball in their hands at the end of a game.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Heidemann, just how she has, in a couple of games, led all scorers from the bench, just how she has really blossomed this year. She's always been a tough, gritty player that can make those shots. But what have you seen from her this year growing into her own?
It's wild. I mean, it's so interesting watching a player get to the next level, because she just kind of slowly moved into it this season. And I don't know if it's because of the whole stud buds thing and how successful that has been, her, Natisha Heidemann and Courtney Williams, away from the court. But she has just this very unique confidence. Actually, both her and Courtney, that they're playing with right now. And it's really just, I think it's so interesting to watch when a player has that, because when she's on the court, I mean, Natisha Heidemann is like 5'8". She couldn't weigh more than 100 pounds. And she is like slipping and sliding through the lane, laying shots in, against way bigger players. She's not fearless. She's not scared of contact. It's just really cool to see her at this next level. And, her and Courtney have just been so good at attacking the basket, but then seeing their teammates. And last night, both of them were just dishing the ball. I don't know. It's just every once in a while you can see a player when they're in the midst of moving to the next level. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with Natisha Heidemann. Her and Courtney both had 7 assists last night, so It's just really remarkable what that backcourt is doing.
So one more topic for today, and we're going to have Leon frequently, and great to have her on the network with us. I know the Lynx would like to take it to the Liberty. Breanna Stewart's knee is sore. She only played 20 minutes, scored 6 points in game 2 of that series. They're playing again on Friday, of course. We're recording this on Thursday morning, by the way. But I think the Lynx probably should want the Liberty, because I look at that Phoenix team and I just see, they're kind of like the veteran star version of the Valkyries. They're physical, they're strong. Alyssa Thomas is just a monster. Satu Sabali's playing great. That's kind of a sleeper team, and I'm not sure that's the team you really want to play the next round. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I agree. The New York just looks like kind of a shell of themselves from last year. And so I actually think Phoenix is going to come out of that series. And you're right. Like, I can't remember who was playing exactly, but when the Lynx met up with Phoenix this year, I think they were often injured. So I don't know how many times we have seen this team fully healthy, but whenever we see them and whenever we see Alyssa Thomas, she's a problem. And she's the triple-double queen, and she's had most of them, or a good share of them, against the Lynx. So that in itself is a problem. And then Sabali, I just think, could be that player. Sometimes she is so great, like in the game, she can really change the games. Other times, not as much. Yeah. So like seeing her really doing her thing, and then just Bonner, she's playing healthy and smart. I agree. I think if Phoenix comes out of this one, that's a series that could go all the way through. I kind of expect the next couple series to go all the way, just because it gets so much tougher to win these games.
So as they say, Lea, buckle up. A lot of basketball to come, right?
Yes, I love it.
All right. Oh, well, thank you so much, Lea. I really appreciate it. I love how the Lynx are playing this year, and look forward to more updates as they continue to win. We're talking positive, right? We'll take this to the next level. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Go Lynx, and look forward to talking to you guys again.
All right. Thank you, Lea. And coming up, we're going to hit a quick break. We have more double badass woman talk. We're going to shift our gears to Vikings as we welcome in Emily Leiker from the Star Tribune. She's one of the beat writers who covers the team. We've got a lot to break down on the football front when we come back. Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. We have an awesome guest, and I love that we're in person because I love these kind of conversations. We have Emily Leiker from the Star Tribune, one of the awesome beat writers for the Vikings. And I say awesome because you guys have just a great crew of people covering this team and all sports, actually. But so we're going to delve into the Vikings and then some. She's also from Washington State. So we've decided we have to talk coffee.
Great to have Emily here. I'm Jim Suhan with TalkNorth.com and Star Tribune as well. So Emily's a colleague. This is Dawn of Sports. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. I also want to thank Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood, and Minnesota Masonic Charities. I'm just throw it right back to you, Dawn. Let's get the conversation going.
And because she's a colleague of yours, had no bearing on the fact that I wanted Emily to be part of this conversation. I mean,
Actually,
I love you, Jim.
Usually it's a negative that people know me. In this case,
you're like, oh,
we'll pretend it's not.
He knows Jim. Oh, okay. Well, Emily, thank you for joining us. I was so thrilled. This is your second year on the beat. And I remember when you first came in and I'm asking everyone to go, oh, who's that? And they're like, oh, that's Emily. And I'm like, is she going to be staying with us? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yes. Because everyone knows I want another woman in those rooms. And it's just been such a joy for me. So thank you for being here and also on our podcast.
Yeah, thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you both. I mean, obviously been around in work settings, but it's nice to kind of step away from that and have a conversation.
Yeah, we put you arm's length so like you can't hit them or anything like that in case you get to know them a little bit better this time.
I should just wear Kevlar everywhere I go.
You give yourself a bad rap though. I think people love you more than you know, Jim.
It's a possibility. It's a remote possibility that you're right.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to have the Star Tribune love then. Well, what brought you here though, Emily? I know being from Washington State and you went to Mizzou, which I can't wait to get into, such a good school. A friend of mine's a professor there of journalism. And then to say you're coming middle of the road, Minnesota, what appealed to you and how did that go down?
Yeah, well, really the big thing was that I grew up a NFL fan more than just like a football fan. And so that's where I've kind of had my sights set since I decided I wanted to do sports journalism. And so, I started out covering college. I covered Syracuse straight out of graduating from Mizzou. I was there for 2.5 seasons before I came here. And so I'd kind of just been looking for NFL jobs when I was doing that job and like seeing like, hey, like where could I break in? Obviously, fewer teams at the NFL level. Often like people go for journalists with more experience who have been in the industry longer. So it's always like I would get some of those calls that are like, yeah, we really liked your application, but we want someone who's already covered the league or who has been in the business 7 to 10 years, whatever it is. And so this application popped up, the job at the Star Tribune, and they were looking for someone that maybe had a little bit more video experience in addition to doing just the traditional beat reporter job. And I was like, okay, I don't have like a ton of video experience yet, but I was doing a podcast in Syracuse, doing some video for that, stand-up video, all of that stuff. I was like, I'll throw my name in the ring for this one. I knew Nyla Jean Myers, our editor from Awesome and APSE. And I knew the Minnesota Star Tribune had a good reputation as a paper, just like countrywide. I'd heard good things about working there, friends who interned. And so I was like, this feels like a good spot to kind of throw my name in the ring. They're looking for someone who's maybe not ready to step like as the number one guy and be breaking news. Obviously, that would be our lead beat reporter, Ben Gessling, who does a lot of that. But they want someone who can grow into that role eventually. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to put my name into the ring for this one. And it worked out.
That's fantastic. And when I hear that, it also makes me smile because I think, and I don't want to say younger or older, but shall we say newer to the profession, you're almost born with the right to know what social media is and video and all that stuff, right? So you might think, well, I don't really have that, but you innately do because you've been doing that all through college. You did that in your first jobs. Like, did you, when you get here, did you realize, wow, I might have a little bit more experience in there than what they thought?
Yeah, I think it's just more like a matter of like realizing how quickly you can pick that skill set up just with minimal knowledge of like growing up alongside it. Like we when I first got here, we very quickly just like started putting the podcast, the Access Vikings podcast, on video. But then between November when I got here and now in September 2025, like we've expanded what that video looks like. And like there's more overlays in there and we have better sound setup. And it's obviously still a work in progress. But I think my biggest thing has been learning like, oh, these things really aren't hard to do. And I did kind of inherently know how to do them, but I just hadn't been doing them, hadn't been asked to do them, hadn't taken the initiative to do them. So yeah, there's certainly a little bit of that and the benefit of sometimes I'm like talking to colleagues and I'm like, oh yeah, well, if you just do X, Y, Z on that, it's going to take you 5 minutes. And then I'm like, oh no, it'll take me 5 minutes because I've been doing this for a while now because I'm more familiar with the apps and the software that we're using. I'll teach you how, or I'll just do it this time, whatever, and use my expertise and kind of use that angle as like, okay, here's what I am bringing that maybe not everyone else on our beat has.
Your 5 minutes is my 13 weeks.
I wasn't going to say anything. Jim. So, Jim, let me ask you, we talk about veterans in this business, and then especially to get a young woman that can really earn her keep and get to this spot so fast. I know media is changing so much, but it is infused with young blood, and it's good to see that finally, don't you think?
Well, yes, we need young people for all the reasons Emily just. And we need new ideas. We need new blood. We need enthusiasm. We need work ethic. We need all that. Also, my first pro sports beat was Dallas Cowboys in 1989. I've been covering the NFL since then in different guises. I was a beat writer for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there was a time at the Star Tribune where I was kind of our NFL national writer. And I'd go do stories around the league as well. So I've been around the league for a long time. And when I started covering football, you just did not see many women print journalists who were covering the NFL. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to get into all the reasons why. We know all the reasons why. Mary Kay Cabot is still a hero of mine, covering the Cleveland Browns. She was always great at it. She's stuck with it. She's tough. She's excellent. And it was so cool to see her going to the Hall of Fame. But there just weren't many, Mary Kay is the only person I can really think of, and unfortunately, because for whatever reason, the women were hired to be the sideline reporter, the extra, whatever. And we're well overdue to have more, and there are a lot more women covering the NFL. Courtney Cronin was here; she's done a great job for ESPN. We have more, but we need more than we have still. So it's just really cool to see us hire Emily, see her do so well in this role, and I just think she has big things ahead of her.
So, Emily, when you were at Mizzou, and you said you grew up loving the NFL. So was that always in the back of your mind in college that this is my goal? Did you already know, like when I went to Boston College. When I graduated, I kind of knew I wanted to do what I'm doing now, only because I interned at a TV station and I wanted sports, and I was a former athlete. But mostly it was I knew what I didn't want to do. I said I could be in radio, I could be in TV, but I loved writing, but I was open to it. And then when I found, you can get paid to do this. And then I kind of went into television. But did you know already what you wanted when you were already in school before you graduated, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, it's funny that Jim brings up sideline reporters, because it was actually well before school that I kind of started to know like sports journalism was what I wanted to do. I think I was around, and I tell this story all the time, but I was around 13 years old when I was watching a game with my dad, and one of the sideline reporters, I believe it was Aaron Andrews, who was on the sideline that game. My dad was like, you can do that. Like, you could be her. Like, we just have to get you through X, Y, Z, whatever. And I was like, oh, really? And so then from there, like, I did stuff in high school. We didn't have a journalism program, but I like live tweeted high school games. I started my own blog. I was doing video in high school as well. So that's something I always forget when I say I didn't do a lot of video. I was doing video in high school. So I started out thinking that's where I would end up, or just thinking that's what I wanted, because it was really what was most familiar to me, which I think it is for a lot of young women, because it's right there in front of you, as opposed to like, I was not a 13-year-old reading the newspaper. I was a 13-year-old who liked to read, but not a 13-year-old reading the newspaper. And so college is definitely when I knew it was more of the writing side for me that I liked, and like telling stories in that medium rather than being in front of the camera all the time, though I was still doing that. It was like, I like to be talking with someone and then take that person's story and put it in the best words possible and help them disseminate that story out to the fans and other people interested. So yeah, Mizzou is when I realized that it was writing over TV or anything else that I wanted to pursue primarily. But like in terms of like sports journalism as an industry, I knew that pretty early.
So were you a Seattle Seahawks fan, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah, I did grow up a Seahawks fan. And I mean, I was 13 right around that Legion of Boom, Russell Wilson, first Super Bowl win era. So like very good time to be tapping into NFL football in terms of like in a Seattle market. But yes, Seattle Seahawks fan. I think now that I've been in just sports journalism for 8 years, obviously, right, your fandoms kind of fade, and it's just who has the most interesting storyline or like whatever.
It becomes about what the most interesting story is. I mean, I grew up a Baltimore Orioles fan, and I could not care. I don't care at all about the Baltimore Orioles or anything else. Unless they're a great story, you know?
Right. Or if you go home back east that way and you have friends that say, hey, do you want to go to a game? You at least can enjoy it in a different way. But I say it takes that fandom out. I had a friend of mine most recently who lives up the street from me say, are you sad today? And I said, about what? They go, I was thinking what, there's a lot of things in the world to be sad about, right? And just the way she asked, and she goes, the Vikings. I go, what? I go, no.
I'm going to interject here. I still don't understand how we have so many people in America who don't actually understand how journalism works. Of course, I'm about to go down a dangerous path here. We also have entire journalistic networks that don't know what journalism is. So that's probably part of the problem. But I mean, how many times do we run into someone who thinks that we're fans who sit in the press box, not people who are actually just there to do the work?
Oh yeah. Well, when they find out that I'm not originally from here, because all blondes are from Minnesota, but I just have been here long enough. They haven't kicked me out yet, but it's interesting because I said, no, I'm fine. They go, oh yeah, but it's sad. I go, no. I said, listen, it's easier to cover a winning team because more guys want to talk to you. It just makes your job easier. But
there are more storylines in the winning locker room too.
And I said, not to be harsh, but it's my job. Yeah. No, I'm not, you get to know guys on an individual level. Like you feel bad if they get hurt or injured or something like that. And she looked at me so baffled. It's like, what? I go, I'm not sad at all. I don't have emotions when it comes to the games. So I learned that quickly, but how quickly did you learn that, Emily?
I think it came pretty quickly for me. My sophomore year of college was my first season covering Mizzou football. And I think it actually helped me come to this realization because they were bad and they ended up having a coach firing at the end of that year and had to go through the coaching search process. They also had NCAA sanctions handed down that year. So it was kind of like, okay, this team sucks. I wouldn't be happy about them anyway. And they're making my job hard because they're losing. And so they're all upset. Mm-hmm. And so I think I came around to it pretty quickly, especially once I was in school and learning about journalism ethics and all of that. Certainly throughout high school, writing about my own high school, I would look back at those stories now and be like, oh, those are quite biased for journalism standards. But it was different. That was a little bit different of a task.
Yeah, I'm sure you have friends go, oh, do you have any Vikings gear? I'm like, not one.
I love the question. Any. I love when they ask if you fly on the team plane with them. And I'm like, yes. Absolutely not.
Okay, there was a time when TV people did fly home with the Vikings. Mm. So it did happen. And
that was before my time. So that's a long time.
But it used to happen. And all the TV people would just jump on the team plane and sit up front and fly home. So it did happen. It shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. And I will also confess this. When I was on the Twins beat, there were times where, I remember one time I covered a 20 inning night game in Cleveland, and they had a noon start in Toronto the next day. And to get to Toronto, you have to go through Detroit, then you have to go through customs. It's quite a process. And I could not have made it to the next game. Mm. And back then, what we would do is go to the traveling secretary and say, can we buy a seat on the team charter for what we would have paid, Delta, just so I can make this game? And sometimes they would accommodate you. It doesn't exist anymore, but it did happen every once in a while, just for full disclosure.
And it can get so picky and all the way down to people think I'm old school. And I am on this. I don't address the coaches as coach. Right. They're not my coach.
They're not our coach.
And a fan came at me once on Twitter. Why do you never call him coach? I'm like, because he's not my coach. Yep. And I said, he calls me Dawn and I will call him Kevin. I don't say coach. And that's a whole nother term. But for me, they're like, well, coach is a sign of respect. I said, actually, I take it as a sign of respect because I'm not his player. If I said coach, I'd feel like I'm one of the guys. Yeah. I'm like, so I'm actually showing respect by not calling him coach. And they don't get that. So it's a whole different, there's so many unwritten rules of journalism. Is there any that once you started getting into the NFL that you have come across?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Other than not wearing
know.
purple, right?
Well, yeah, and that's one from like the never wearing Mizzou stuff and things like that. I don't know. I don't think I have an answer to that one.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about it.
No, that's good. That's a good sign then. That's a good sign because some people are like, what? People are like, where's your purple? Like for a Vikings pregame show. I'm like, I'm not wearing purple. Have you even noticed down to our mic flags when we do the pregame show? I hold the Fox 9 flag and Ben will hold the Vikings flag or whomever, if it's Pete. I said, people say, we don't even notice that. I go, well, that's how ingrained it is in journalism. I go, there's such a fine line and you have to respect it or the lines can get blurred.
Let's also be honest here too. You and I the three of us will be following these rules, and then, the Star Tribune or Fox 9, or then the news anchor will come on and go, let's go Vikings. I mean, it's we
because they can. We can't.
Our industry also confuses the hell out of people because, and then,
that's true.
And what, then you'll have Star Tribune people out there and you'll have somebody in upper management at the Star Tribune, wearing the purple and waving a pom-pom at the game. I mean, so part of the confusion is
with our own
industry's
industry.
fault. All right, let me take care of the business. The business will come back with Emily, talk about this Vikings team and what it's like to cover this group. Thanks, first of all, to Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Hey everyone, John Krasinski here to celebrate with you that football season is finally upon us. Join me on the Viking Update Show for all the latest action, insights, and stories from the field. Jim Suhan and I will have everything you need on our podcast on the Talk North Podcast Network.
Thanks also to a great Minnesota company, Minnesota Masonic Charities. And a reminder where you're coming to from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
All right. Well, speaking of me not being sad, let's jump right back into game number 2, where I think many of us, Emily, were expecting the second half. Maybe this will be a repeat of week 1 and they'll pull it out. And there were a couple of times where when there was that third down to Adam Thielen and then Speedy they were right knocking at the door and then they just shot themselves in the foot. Let's go overall at first. It's been quite an emotional roller coaster for fans, but also just a football roller coaster.
Yeah, it's quite funny to see, to go and look at the reactions from last Monday night's game against the Bears and then look at the tweets from 2 nights ago and everyone's like, JJ McCarthy's our savior, he's the best quarterback ever. And then it's like, bench him. We don't need him. Move on to Carson Wentz, which now, of course, JJ has that injury and we're going to see how long Carson Wentz has to take over. But, I think it's easy when you're outside and you're a fan and you're not around the team every day as we are to take a moment like that and go full panic mode because it is tough to watch a quarterback not hit his targets, not hit someone like Justin Jefferson, whose mantra is basically throw it anywhere near me and I'm going to be able to catch it and just have things continue to go wrong and wrong again. But for us on the inside, we know that it takes time for these things to develop. And as talented as JJ McCarthy is and as mature as he is, which is something we've talked about as a media group, and then obviously the coaching staff and just the organization talks about, but it still takes time for a 22-year-old to settle into leading an offense at the professional football level. Would you maybe hope that it looks a little less messy than it does right now? Certainly, absolutely. But to think that he was just going to come in and there weren't going to be any mistakes, which it does seem like some fans thought he would just come in and be, okay, 100% completion. Yeah, we're going in the Super Bowl, all that stuff. That's just not reality when you're taking a young quarterback into the league. And, it will be interesting to see how long he ends up missing and when he comes back and what that return looks like, especially because right now, if he misses more than one game, I doubt they would play him in either of the international games. They would probably just hold him until after that bye week. And then you come back and it's Super Bowl champion Ravens. It's the Chargers who have a lot of juice. It's the Super Bowl champion Eagles. Sorry. The Ravens also come in that stretch. The Lions they face for the first time. And so he's had these 2 games where, yes, one, he comes out and pulls off the victory and looks like this man who can do anything. And another where he just does not look that way at all. And now the next time you might see him is in a game that's even double the stakes.
And I think people already are like, well, now he's always hurt. I'm like, wow, it's game 2. And let's be logical about things. And fans do not like it when I say, let's be logical about things. Offensive line is banged up.
Yes.
The O-line is banged up. They're already deep into the backups. They're looking like, who's number 3 now? Like, you're looking like, who's the third? Who can switch positions? What can Blake do when we move him all over? So you can't put that all on a rookie quarterback, right? He needs to be protected. Even a protected rookie quarterback has to learn to get into the groove. You even have a brand new wide receiver. You've been with, Jordan Addison all preseason. He's not even there. So there's so many things that have gone on. But I think for me, I'm less surprised at the offense being a mess as I am about what I've seen on the defense. Injuries aside there as well. Just kind of chunk yardage and things like that. I think they're kind of a work in progress too. But then they surprise you where, this past game, it's like, oh, I think it was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're exhausted. And they kept stopping them. And yes, you can force a field goal. I think people were expecting like splash plays and this and that. I mean, I think when one part of your body, your offensive arm is out of whack, you feel the pressure that you have to do it all on defense. What's your take on the defense right now?
Yeah, I thought the defense was better against the Falcons than it had been against the Bears. I mean, right? Like watching Caleb Williams tear them apart on his feet was kind of brutal. Shocking after like how many times they landed home on JJ McCarthy during training camp. And McCarthy's also a pretty mobile quarterback. I wouldn't say he's as fast as Caleb Williams is, but that was quite a surprise. They did get home a little quicker and a little more often, it felt like, against Penix on Sunday night. But yeah, that second level, like getting into the secondary, there's certainly been some tackling issues. And, you were there, Dawn, when Josh Metellus talked about it post game the other night. He was not happy with how they performed in the run game. So we'll see, like Harrison Smith's out there, and I would assume he's making his return soon, but we're not 100% sure about that. I mean, the trenches, I think, are playing well or close to what you would expect out of them. You probably still want a little more, but I think it's really like once you get into that secondary that it starts to be like, okay, I thought this was supposed to be like a defense that looked even better than last year, and we're maybe teetering a little bit.
Right, and I didn't think it was realistic. I know that the guys up front wanted to say like, hey, it's our job to never have the secondary see action.
Right.
Well, that's not going to happen in the NFL. That's great. But then you have Okudah that gets hurt too. And then, at linebacker already they're having issues, when Cashman goes down. Now, Eric Wilson has been amazing filling in that capacity. But and it's hard to say just take the injuries out of the mix, because I think that's a huge story in and of itself, just the sheer amount of, I had my live shot yesterday, it was a whole sheet, so they said, hey, let's just talk about one of the injuries, one of the questions. And I said to my producer, how much time do we have? Because there's not just one injury, it's not just Aaron Jones that was hurt after this game. So
really, when you look at the CJ Ham starting on injured list and the fact that Addison's out, if you look at the roster a certain way, you could say they have 9 or 10 starters out of the 22 presumptive starters. That's ridiculous.
It's been crazy. And then you don't know when they're going to come back. So neither side, if there's injury like that, can get into a rhythm, I think. So when you see Cincinnati coming in, Joe Burrow-less. So I've already had fans going, oh, that's a W. I'm like, one guy doesn't make a team. What are your major thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, it's interesting that it's turned into a backup QB on backup QB fest because they have Jake Browning, who is familiar to Vikings fans, and then Carson Wentz will be out there. I think the thing is, like, looking at it just offensively is, you're missing the starting quarterback on both sides, but you're talking about Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, who are the two top wide receivers in the league. And if Wentz can get it in Justin Jefferson's direction more often than JJ has, if Jake Browning can get it to Jamar Chase, which we know he did the other day, like, those guys are going to make plays. And so I am a little curious if this turns into more of a shootout than the past 2 weeks have offensively. Now we'll see if the Vikings defense gets home more on Browning and they're able to limit him a little bit more. But it certainly is going to be an interesting game for the Vikings offense because of having a veteran in there in Wentz, who has been in these scenarios before where he's just tasked with coming in at the last minute, knows how to prepare for them. Everything we've heard about him coming in the past 3 weeks is that he's picked this up quickly. And so he's got the arm strength. He's got the just like raw game experience that JJ McCarthy lacks. And so I'm curious to see how much different this offense looks with him in the helm.
But I really liked the question yesterday, and I don't know if it was from Kevin Seifert or it might have been Ben or someone asking, so can Wentz step in and do exactly what JJ has been doing? And he basically said, he'll just take the menu and read off the menu. I like that quote. And some people say the concern is, well, the JJ menu was small because he was a rookie getting ready. So I'm like, well, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want the offense that they're going to go with anyway? Yes, you do, because everyone's on the same page. So that actually sounded good, and KO sounded a little confident in what he thinks about Carson right now, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think they have, he's 32 years old. He's played 11 seasons in the league. I looked up today, like, he's appeared in 98 games and he's started 94 of them, which is kind of crazy for a guy who's just been floating around as a backup for the last few years. So he'll be ready.
Prince Harry, that's what my friends call him. Carson Wentz. They go, Prince Harry's leading the team.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
I think this team is always interesting, and many times in torturous ways, but still it's always interesting. And honestly, I've heard a lot of things about Carson Wentz around the league, that he just hasn't been a great teammate, hadn't been a great guy. I think there are some real negatives out there. I even heard kind of the same things about him when he's North Dakota State. But he has an opportunity here to change his entire career, his entire life. If he steps in and plays well right away here and is a good teammate, he could be a starting quarterback in the league next year.
We saw that happen last year, didn't we? Mm-hmm. With Sam.
Well, and honestly, Sam, we all know he's talented, high draft pick, all that other stuff. Sam really had only performed well at a month at a time here or there before last year, where he performed well for basically 3.5 to 4 months. Wentz was really good right away. Mm-hmm. He was an MVP. He was on his way to the MVP award before he got hurt. There's good stuff in there. Mm-hmm. If they can do what they did with Darnold, of course, Darnold had the whole offseason, which is a different thing, but Wentz has a chance here to do something pretty special.
What I am interested to see, too, the perspective that Wentz came in, and he said, I think that time on the couch, as he put it, when he first got here, I don't know what he was like in college. I don't know what he was like teammate-wise. I don't have any friends that covered him. So I come in mentally with a clean slate. But when he admitted that has to be life-altering, where you think, I should be playing with a team, and I'm on the beach still. And then you get that late call, hey, the Vikings want you. You stay ready for it. But I wonder if that will help at all in terms of, this is a new life. This is my whatever second chance, again, to be in this league. I think that can affect a player, don't you?
Oh yeah. I think feeling like you're getting a second chance at something is certainly a powerful tool. And not that it's the exact same situation, but he was injured in 2017, I believe, right? And then
Foles came in.
Yeah, Foles comes in, wins the Super Bowl. So he has a chance to maybe at least reverse some of the script on that and say, hey, now I've done that where I'm the backup and I come in and win the job, or not win the job, but win some games.
Have to do the job, right?
Or win the job.
Or
I think that's the fascinating scenario here is that if Wentz plays really well and this offense starts cooking, and they have 3 very winnable games in a row right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a veteran roster, and they all saw JJ struggle. If Wentz lights it up the next 3 weeks or however long he gets, how does O'Connell go in and say, okay, we're winning. He's playing great. We have a veteran quarterback leading us. Let's go try the rookie out again and just let him lose some games while he learns. I don't know if they can do that.
Yeah.
Now it's probably a moot point. These Wentz, odds are against Wentz absolutely lighting it up and winning every game he starts, but it's a possibility.
Hey, you just don't know, like you said. The interesting perspective could also be the fact that he is Josh McCown. So Josh and he knew each other. Josh was his backup, So now Josh is teaching him what life as a backup is, and now he's the guy again. So to have like that familiarity also in your ear, I think that can be very helpful. I think so. I think it's kind of a weird scenario. Like here we are again. It's almost like when you've been around the league long enough, like your friends' jobs change, they get real jobs. It can be your coach or your boss. How have you seen that relationship?
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen a ton, right? Just because we kind of stop going out to practice once the season starts, or they give us a very limited part of practice. But from everything we've heard, yes. Josh McCown is, I think, just an incredible quarterbacks coach to begin with. But this kind of like knotted web that the entire Vikings quarterback room has of like, okay, like here's how Kevin O'Connell is tied to Josh McCown and Josh McCown's tied to Carson Wentz. And Kevin O'Connell was still playing when Carson Wentz started his career. And so they all kind of know each other. Even like looking at like Max Brosmer, who's now set to be the second QB for at least a week, like Kevin O'Connell saw him before he was even like playing at Minnesota, like all this different stuff. It's a very tangled web, but I do think familiarity is almost always beneficial.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit and we can get back into the Vikings. But when I have perspective on new people that kind of come in and start covering the Vikings that are not from Minnesota, your perspective, you bring it in terms of, yes, I love the whole NFL and I was in the college game. How do you see the whole woe is us? We haven't won anything. And I'm now, I understand the Vikings fans' plight that way. I do. But what is your fresh take on the whole situation?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I feel like I've covered a lot of woe is us fan bases. That was Mizzou for a while. Mizzou, of course, now is doing well. But they were very woe is us when I was there in school and actually covering them. And then Syracuse was very woe is us. I covered a coaching change there too, a very dramatic one. Fans were calling for Dino Babers to be out for weeks in his final season. So the woe is me I'm familiar with. I will say it was an interesting experience last year because I was not here for the start of the season or the preseason when it was first like, oh my gosh, Darnold's going to have to be the guy all season. Do we believe he can do it? No. And then obviously by the time I get there in November, I think they had 9 wins at that point probably or somewhere around there. Yeah. And they went out the rest of the season until that season finale. And so I kind of got to like see like what this fan base looks when it's in a really good mood for the first month or so of my career and this team. And then got to those 2 final games and it was like, oh, I understand why everyone is like this. So it was not a completely like unfamiliar like type of like interaction or fan base feeling right to me. But yeah, I get it. I get it now. I think I've seen enough. And like, someone in the media corps was joking with me yesterday when we're standing up in the locker room and obviously no one's in there. And we've just found out JJ McCarthy's out for however long. They're like, well, you covered the playoff collapse and now you've covered a quarterback injury. So I think you're a Vikings reporter now.
Yes.
I know we did the count when, and I got to go back to my notes and see what it was when they said, oh, JJ McCarthy is going to be the starting quarterback. I said, I got here 2004 and I think JJ was my 22nd quarterback to start a game for the Vikings since I've been here. And I'm like, and I'm not, I'm still a newbie in terms of like you, or like if there are other, long-standing reporters. I mean, Judd Zulgad, other people have been here even longer than me. They're like, oh, it doesn't matter what my total is, right? And I said, Dante Culpepper was the quarterback when I got here. And so since Dante Culpepper, it's been like 22, soon to be 23 when Carson Wentz. I have to double check my notes. Could be 24, but that's a lot.
Well, I tell you what, I got here to cover the team in 1990, and I still remember watching the quarterbacks jog around at the first practice I covered. It was Wade Wilson in the lead. It was Rich Gannon behind him. Back then, he was a fourth round draft choice who nobody had ever heard of out of Delaware. He was long away from ever becoming the MVP candidate he became with the Raiders later in his life. And the guy trailing behind him was I think he was like a 12th round draft pick or 8th round draft pick. Brad Johnson was the third guy in that line.
Wow.
And he ends up winning a Super Bowl. Gannon ends up being like a player of the year candidate. And of course, Wade Wilson had his moments with the Vikings. But I mean, I was telling somebody,
you need to go back and count how many starting quarterbacks. I
do. And I was on the Viking Update show with Krasinski. We recorded this morning. We're talking about quarterback change and all that. And it just flashed in my brain. I'm watching, the 1998 Vikings team with Randy Moss and Chris Carter, and everybody kind of knew that they were going to be really good. And I think it was either the first week or the second week, probably the first week. And Brad Johnson, their starting quarterback, goes down with an injury. They bring in Randall Cunningham, and everybody's like, "Oh, season's over," and they go 15-1. So,
wow.
So this, and then Case Keenum does that.
Keenum, right? That year was crazy.
This team has had, and Wade Wilson did it once. This team has had a lot of backup quarterbacks take them places.
Yeah. You never know, Emily, that this is, you can get your second quarterback taking it. Well, who was talking in the locker room? Was it Adam Thielen? I've been on this team where we won the first 5 games and we didn't even make the playoffs, so it is true. It's only week 3 coming up, but it just seems like longer, doesn't it?
It is the passage of time during football season when you're covering football season is a real mind warp.
So who were your idols in terms of, because the only person I can remember woman-wise that would be on the sideline when I was growing up was Leslie Visser. So Pioneer. And she was a writer, Boston Globe writer.
She was an excellent writer, and then she transitioned to TV.
Yeah, and she told me the reason why they wanted her on TV, they liked her lips. They said, you have good lips, so look good on TV.
That's
She's
crazy.
Like, how about my writing? Like, I'm a sports writer for the Boston Globe sports team, department. So she was kind of one of the first women I saw in terms of that. But I knew as a writer, so I didn't really have a lot of women when I was growing up to say like, oh, this is what I want to do. I actually was told, there'll never be an anchor, a women's sports anchor in Boston, Dawn. Don't do it. And then when I got to Nesson and I did, there weren't that many people around to look to see. And now I love it. I love seeing, Jim and I joke around, I like to have my coaching tree, like Jamie Erdahl, Jenny Taft, some of my former interns that are now, doing awesome. But I also don't think you need to see it sometimes. You need to see it to be it, but I think sometimes you can see it in someone else. Mm-hmm. Like I loved Peter Gammons and his writing, and that's what and so for me, it was both men and women. So it does not have to be a woman, but who was someone that you really idolized to kind of take the next steps in your career?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, Erin Andrews is the one that kind of made me realize I could do it, and that there was a job there. In college, I would say there's probably like 3 or 4, all of whom I was lucky enough to meet in college. Mirin Fader, who is a profile writer. She does a lot of book writing as well. She's more on like the basketball side, but just her features are some of the most incredible writing you'll ever read. She's a big one for me. Seth Wickersham and Wright Thompson, Mizzou grads. So they were around. They would talk to classes fairly often. They came in and talked about their books a couple of years ago. It was right when Seth had written his book on the New England Patriots and that dynasty. They're 2 that are obviously like can't miss for me. Like the second they release something, I have to read it. And then in terms of like more like specific to like what I'm doing now, obviously, and really being someone that mentors me. Brooke Pryor at ESPN, she covers the Steelers.
Yeah.
She's a big one for me. She's just been so helpful, and she lets me tag along whenever we're at like league-wide events and just introduces me to people. And I've been really grateful for her. I think she's great at asking hard questions in front of an organization that doesn't always like to answer them. I mean, Mike Tomlin can be a character behind the mic. Now she's dealing with Aaron Rodgers. So she's like someone I turn to really often. And she's introduced me to a bunch other women in the business that I now get to look up to in a way where like, okay, it's not just me looking up to them. It's like, I actually know you now and I could turn to you if I had questions.
Yeah, to get some, like Laura Oakman and I, be like, we sometimes have to bounce things off each other, because for years, like you look across the field and there was no other woman in any capacity, not even a photographer, nothing, sometimes up even in the press box, I'm looking around. I remember I needed something of a feminine nature. And this was not this long ago. And I remember I was in Atlanta and I'm looking around and dummy me was wearing a white sundress. What was I thinking? But anyway, I'm like, I have a problem. Not one woman. There's not a PR woman. There was not one woman in the press box in Atlanta. And so I went to the women that were serving the lunch. And they're like, come on, honey child, come with me, come in the back. And then like, and they'd be like, girl, I'm like 60. No. And so, they're taking me down in the elevators and all this stuff to try to help me. And I'm like, okay, there's a sisterhood. There's a sisterhood, but there was not a sisterhood. And I was thinking, I've been doing this a long time already. I mean, this was, I would say, only about 10 years ago. And I was like, wow. And so now every time I see, a woman, and whether she's a photographer, Liz Flores, who I adore, or someone in PR, where the Vikings have at least 4 or 5, and Sarah and Carly, who left.
And we miss Carly. Yeah.
They're wonderful people. It just makes me so happy. And not that I feel like, oh, I remember when back in my day. I'm not there yet, but I'm just saying, when I look around the league in terms of football and see women in capacities that aren't just working in the lunchroom, right? Just like I see women that are not just on the sideline. And if you want to be a sideline reporter, and I have young women that ask me all the time, and I said, go for it if you want to. I always look for my own personal thing is, that's not where you should settle. I'm always against women getting a job because that's where the place for a woman is. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, no, I want to be on the desk with the guys. No, I want to be doing this, or I want to be in maybe if I'm done with media, I want to be in the front office. Like, I don't want to be just where it's easy to get your foot in, but that's just kind of my personality anyway. The person who got hurt in soccer was told to be a cheerleader, so I walked on the rugby team. Like, my mentality is a little out there. I get it. I understand that. But, so what I love now for the next generation is that you're seeing women coaches, seeing women GMs, vice presidents. I just think that that's such an amazing perspective. I do. Every single game now, I look around, because for a while there, I didn't even notice. I was the only woman for the longest time. And I once was in a locker room. We talked about this, Jim, once, and it was the Timberwolves locker room. And someone goes, no one told me there's a girl in here. And I look behind me. I thought someone brought their daughter with them, right? No, but he was talking about me. So now I notice, because before, like, hey, there's no women in here. And I'm like, there's not? I'm like, oh. And now I'm fully aware. So I don't know if I was just clueless and working my tail off to try to survive for so long, but I don't know what it is for the next generation, but I want to thank you for kind of like even taking the torch and being just a few years out of college and to cover the NFL. First of all, it takes talent to get your job. So kudos to you on that. Thank you. And it takes talent to do it well as you do. So do you feel that? Do you kind of feel like I'm here now? I'm like the next generation. Like younger girls are going to look up to you. Like, how do I get a job at covering the Vikings?
I think it's starting to settle. It's not quite there yet. Just mainly because like coming in mid-season, last year was such a whirlwind that it was like, okay, I need to focus on making sure I know what everyone in the locker room looks like. Like, I think it was, I don't know if Jim remembers this. I think it was Jim that I asked, but we were in Seattle last year. It was my first road game that I did because I'm from Seattle, as I think we're going to talk about. But Theo Jackson made a big play. And I was supposed to be writing about Theo Jackson. I'm like, I don't think I know what Theo Jackson looks like. And none of their lockers are labeled very big on the road. And the Seattle visitors locker room was super small. And I'm like spinning around and I'm like, I don't know what Theo Jackson looks like. I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. All been there. And so I finally turned to someone. It was Jim or someone else that was there. And I was like, can you just tell me who Theo Jackson is? So I think last year was like a lot of me settling in. And then like this spring was going through all the firsts of like the combine and obviously draft weekend and all those kind of bigger events that are just completely different to cover and not something you have any experience with, like when you're just covering college. And now it's starting to settle a little bit. It is weird sometimes too, thinking that like, I mean, my immediate peers on the Vikings beat are mostly men above 40. And then you and Julia.
And some well above
40. And then it's like, even like when I turn and look at someone like those mentors that I mentioned, it's like, I think of them as also young women, and they are young women.
Yes.
But still like, I'm like younger than them. And I'm like, okay, like this is a different thing. So it's still hitting me. And I think it'll take probably a little bit of time. I mean, I'm still the same age as like undrafted rookies coming out right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I remember feeling weird when I was right out of college, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I was traveling with CBS Sports, and like, I'm like, I went to school with him, you know, like, don't come over and hug me. Like, why can't I hug you? I go, you can't, I'm working, don't hug me. And they're like, okay, weirdo. And then later I'm like, no, I don't want my colleagues to think I'm hugging athletes. It's like, but we're friends. I'm like, we're friends when I'm away from work.
Yeah.
Now I guess, you know, you get a little bit older and you don't care, like, hey, bring it in. But when you're first starting to cut your teeth, it is kind of a little hard. But no, I think it's awesome. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, we did mention that we want to talk Seattle a little bit, right? Because Jim's a kind of a from all over. I don't like the term Army brat, Navy brat. Like you just
I was an Air Force brat.
Yeah, Air Force brat, but not even brat. How about?
I was a brat.
Yeah, were you? Okay.
Exactly.
All right, we'll put that. I know I see Alex laughing over there, producer Brett over there. So we've got from all over, East Coast, and you're far west, land of coffee, right? You said can we say it on this podcast that she hates caribou?
I don't like it.
You just said it.
How do you not like caribou?
I will say that caribou, I think
she's from Seattle, so she gets a Starbucks.
I think
we'll just give her that.
Concoctions are good. I don't really necessarily love the actual black coffee.
I would say that too. That like when I get like a cold brew or like an Americano from Caribou, I'm like, something about this isn't right to me. I will say too.
Okay. What's your favorite coffee?
I would prefer local coffee anywhere over any chain brand. And that's definitely where Seattle and growing up in Washington spoiled me, is because you have like a different local chain on every corner. Like you can't go a block without getting coffee from a different retailer. And like we would have, like in high school, I would show up and like kids would show up and everyone has like 32-ounce coffees, which is insane to think about. Now I'm like, that much caffeine would kill me, but everyone was drinking it. And it would be like from like whatever coffee shop was literally 3 minutes from their house. And that just felt so normal to me. And then I think I got to Mizzou, and certainly in the Midwest, it wasn't like that. It's not like that on the East Coast. It's not like that here. And so it took me a while to be like, oh, that's very much just a Seattle Washington thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what is your favorite place when you go home? Do you have a name like mom and pop?
I don't know if I have a super fave at home. I will say my fave here is probably Spy House.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's very good.
So a chain, but like a smaller one, local.
And started off as just a one little room joint before they had success.
I love when we go on the road for Vikings. And if we have a chance, like after you land, you do your story, to get those local coffee houses. I think, we know Adam Thielen loves his coffee too, but
Right.
there's, I think it's Jonathan Grenard. There's someone else that really loves. I remember I saw someone out and about and it's like, oh, I heard about this coffee shop. I had to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. Can't like you DoorDash it or something, but kind of craziness. But for me, I grew up loving the smell. My dad always made coffee for my mom. She was the only one that drank it. Like my mom drank coffee and smoked cigarettes. My dad did neither. Like it was, I guess opposite attract. But I love the smell, and I remember taking it and I hated it. So I didn't, and I tried it again in college, senior year. Big one regular at Dunkin' Donuts. Now, of course, everyone's like, well, of course you did because you're from Boston. Well, I did not know that a Big One regular coffee back east has milk and sugar. Okay, so I didn't really have sugar, a lot of sugar, being an athlete, and I didn't drink caffeine. So I got a Big One, which is like makes a venti look like an infant. It's a huge thing, and I was like that Seinfeld character, right? What's his name? The Kramer?
Yeah.
Oh my God. When he comes in the caffeine one, I was hyper literally for 2 weeks off of one coffee. I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What am I got? I don't think I drank coffee, I would say consistently until I moved to Minnesota. When I'm like, oh my God, how cold is it here? I thought Chicago and Boston. I thought I wrote the book on cold. No. But my friends used to own one of the Dunn brothers.
Oh, okay.
And she said, let my barista find something that you like. So I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I like that. And now I'm like, oh. And so now I just, full disclosure, copied Emily's coffee today. I asked her what her coffee order was. And I'm like, that sounds really good. It is a vanilla sweet cream cold brew.
Yeah.
And I got the smaller.
It's a nice
just in
treat.
case I didn't
it's
like
not
it.
an everyday
It's
coffee,
not an
but it's
everyday.
a nice treat.
But you got to do that for yourself. What is your everyday?
I usually go for an Americano, almost always iced, which I think is a Gen Z thing. I don't know. Is iced coffee all the time? It feels like it is.
No,
I'm looking to the
Bostonians
only
are
other Gen
always
Z
iced
person in the
coffee,
room
so I
to
think
nod.
we're iced coffee
Okay.
every day all the way. But now, because now this is what the Gen Z's like. Ready?
Do some
That's
ASMR.
why they like the iced, right? That's right. Jim, you're just straight black, right?
Yes.
Just straight black coffee.
Yep. I like my coffee I like to have coffee in my coffee.
Yes.
I like to have coffee in my coffee too,
Yeah.
but sometimes you got to go for the treat,
You gotta go.
especially
for the
after
treat.
2 night games to open
Yes, well, that's
the
true.
season.
It's like, what day is it? I remember talking to the staff because the schedule is so crazy. They're like, we won't get into a full rhythm of football until mid-October.
Yeah.
Well, but because they have this week, which is a normal week, and then they go abroad for 2 weeks. So.
Oh my goodness, which I can't wait. Well, what advice would you give a young woman now, specifically a young woman in college? This is, oh my gosh, Emily, how do I follow in your footsteps? I told myself I want to be covering an NFL team, writing for a newspaper 2 years out of school. They have high expectations.
Yeah.
They do.
And I did too.
You did too, and you got it though. So what would you say to them?
I think number one, and this one's cliche, so I'll think of another one too. But when people tell you to network and to like talk to as many people as you can and then maintain those relationships, they are right. And like that sucks to do as a college student, especially, or like as a young professional. I mean, so often these people that you're trying to reach out to and form connections with are 20, 25 years older than you. They already have connections with other people on the beat that they've known longer, they know better, or are more their peers. And so like being 23 and having to think about like, oh God, how am I going to connect with a college athletic director so that they feel like they can talk to me is like hard. But like any way you can figure out how to do it, I think it is key. And also like finding the people to connect with that maybe your peers aren't. So like as a woman, coaches' wives, like I think that's always like a big thing. Like some of my best sources or the people I talk to most consistently, especially covering colleges, was, hey, the offensive coordinator's wife, like her husband's hardly home in the season. And so she would love to come get coffee, whatever. And we'd sit and chat for 2 hours. And sure, you're not like using everything from that conversation.
No.
You may not be using any of it, but now when something does come up, okay, she's going to be like, yeah, I talked to Emily, offensive coordinator, you should talk to her too and like do whatever. And that certainly helps. So networking, as much as it can suck, as much as it sounds cliche, I do think that's like something that helps you. And that's both like in terms of like doing your actual job, but then finding jobs as well.
Yes.
I mean, like I mentioned, I knew Nyla before I got this job. And so that helped me to some degree. I don't know how much that would be for Nyla to answer, but it helped me to some degree, or at least made me more comfortable in applying to the job. I think the second thing is like find a niche and like really attack it too. Like whether that be like me doing video stuff and really staking a claim on that for us, or I think like another place I really like to hang my hat is like just like cultural knowledge outside of the sport, because sports and culture are so tied and increasingly tied nowadays. And so like when we did our JJ McCarthy preview section, it was like, okay, everyone else is writing the main profiles on JJ and what his footwork is and how long he's worked to become a quarterback. Like, what's an angle that I can do? And I came up with the like, here's the Gen Z guide to JJ McCarthy. And it's like pulling all these crazy things that he says online, not that crazy, but just like words that he uses and things like that. And so like that went in there and I thought it turned out really well. And that's because like, I knew I had this knowledge that no one else on our Star Tribune beat was going to have, or at least not to my extent, and certainly no one else on the Vikings beat more broadly. So like if you can pin down something that you know about in your sport or connected to your sport that you're covering, like really go after that, especially if it's something that other people aren't going to pursue.
You know, I love that you said that, because being the Gen Xer that I am, I loved reading that, right? Because I'm like, oh, I know some of them. I would never say the words because people, my like niece and nephew, go like, no, like just no, don't say that. So, but it was really, I love that. And it kind of doubles down on my belief the whole time is I didn't play in the NFL. You know, I'm not going to be breaking down a play with the, X to the Y to, like, there's some, I know nickel packages, I know the go ball. I know the slant routes. Yes. But my expertise isn't not that. My expertise is that I'm watching the game and I'm talking to the athletes and I'm hearing what they're saying. And then I'm telling the people back home what they're saying and how they feel about it. I'm not here to say, well, when I played, like, I didn't play. And I think it took me a long time to realize that that's okay. What I bring to the table is a unique perspective. It does not have to be exactly like the former player. It doesn't have to, that's what they do. What I do really well is I can talk to people and they can open up to me. They might say something to me that they wouldn't say to someone else. And that's what I bring to the table. And you don't have to be a Gen Zer to enjoy that you wrote about Gen Zer. Like, I loved it, So I think that's a great piece of advice to tell anyone young coming up. Just be yourself. And if you're like, well, no one is going to, I know some people say, well, no one was going to ask a question. So I want to ask about this. You should have asked that question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no one else. I go, no, that's when you should say it. Like, well, you didn't say anything. I go, I didn't ask a question today only for 2 reasons. Both of my questions were asked and I don't need to ask just to prove to someone that I know something. Mm-hmm. I'm like, those 2 questions are what I needed. My day here is done, But just, if that interests you, if this is what you want to ask, go and ask. And you never know. That could be exactly what everyone else is writing that day, right? So that's been the fun part.
Yeah, well, I mean, nowadays, like the general like NFL audience is so much larger than it was like even 5-10 years ago. And yes, they're like the diehards still make up a large majority of it, but there are people who are getting into watching football on Sundays that like only started watching football last year, and they like to have those human interest pieces, and they're more familiar with Joe Burrow or someone like that, or Justin Jefferson because they were on the Met Gala carpet, than they are because they can play football. And so like finding those ways to pull in those people who are probably not just coming to the Star Tribune for football coverage, but see a headline like that, the Gen Z story, and are like, oh, this is interesting. And bringing those people in, I think is really cool.
Well, you're brilliant and you're fun. And what are your social media handles? So if people want to follow you on social media and online, how they can find you?
So X and Blue Sky, I am at EM Leiker, Leiker. And then on Instagram, I am eleiker.rights, I believe. So yeah, those are the main 3 places I post work stuff, I would say.
Well, great. Emily, thank you so much for coming on. And if you don't mind, we'll have you on again.
Oh, I'd love to.
It's going to be a long season. Sometimes, we'll get you on, even if we're on the road or something like that. But we'd love to have you on again.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Thanks, Emily.
All right, thank you.